Everyone seems to be looking for that long-term relationship, but since the introduction of apps and online dating services, relationships have taken a back seat. Lots of people are more interested in hooking up than going into that long-term marriage. Hi, welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. This is Joey Buzzertle, and on today's show, we're going to be speaking to two gay boys who have been together for over 9 years, and they're going to be telling us their secret to why their relationship has worked. So I'd like to introduce Glenn and Jim. How are you, boys?
Hey, Joey.
Hey, Joey.
Thank you for taking the time out to do this today.
It's okay.
So I guess you want to just give us a bit of an intro about individually who you are, maybe what you do for a living, just or your age, something like that.
You can start. Go on.
I am just shy of 50, so I'm 49, and I'm a business analyst. So I've been working at Seek for quite a while. I'm not from Melbourne originally, but I've been here for about 20 years now.
Cool.
Country boy.
Country boy for the country.
Yeah, pretty much so. So I chose the pandemic year to turn 50. So that's fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm not a country boy. I'm a Melbourne boy. So I'm born and bred here, Greek background. And currently I have a design or graphic design business.
Beautiful.
And yeah.
So before we go into your relationship, which, I personally know you two, and I do look at you both as role models. So thank you for being that for me. Before we go into that, I just wanted to ask you both, if you can go back to before you met, what were your individual thoughts about relationships? Because I know that you were together now, but before you met, how did you see relationships? Jim?
Do you know what? Before, like most of us maybe at this age, we've had a few relationships that weren't great or we learnt a lot from. But before I started dating Glenn, I was quite comfortable being single, but I just couldn't find anyone interesting enough to sort of want to continue seeing them. So I think I was on that train of thought saying, you know what, I might be single for the rest of my life. Who knows?
Right,
I just couldn't find anyone interesting. So I was comfortable with that. I wasn't searching so much, but yeah, that's where I was at that stage.
Okay, Glenn?
I think for me, I came out when I was 31, so I came out quite late, and had, I guess, minor relationships as a straight man, you might say. But so I always wanted relationships, and I did have a few relationships before Jim and I got together, and they lasted for a few years each. So my single time as a gay man was not that long. So I guess I've kind of gone from one relationship to the next, not necessarily by choice, but it just kind of happened that way.
Yeah. So Jim had was out earlier and had the relationships and then the freedom of being single, while Glenn, you sort of went straight into a relationship and maintained that, and you didn't really have much exposure to the single world in a gay life. Would that be right?
I've had probably a couple of years of being single. That said, I've really enjoyed my single years. So, but the relationships I had generally I wasn't looking for them.
Okay.
It happened.
Yeah. So now that you guys have sort of explained that, how did you guys meet? Like, Jim, you were saying that I really relate with you because I feel the same way in regards to the fact that there isn't many interesting people that I feel I could spend a lot of time with. And that could be because we live in Melbourne and we know everyone. I don't know. But how did it all come about?
This one's a bit of a long one, so we'll try to make
it a short
one. Go on, Glenn, you started.
I think we should preface this. Jim and I knew each other for probably about 7 or 8 years before we got together.
Right.
And we first met at a party. I think this was a couple of years after I moved to Melbourne and just come out. It was like a Christmas party. And I went to this party. Being new to the gay scene, I didn't realise that kind of you had to wear tight t-shirts.
We didn't have to wear tight t-shirts.
I was at that party. I remember.
You were at that party, yeah.
And I think I was
tight t-shirts. Okay.
Tight t-shirts. Yes, it was that era.
It was that's all I saw was a sea of tight t-shirts, and I was wearing this really colourful Hawaiian t-shirt kind of thing, which obviously means I stood out for all the wrong reasons. And I was with a good friend, and Jim came up.
So
and
I knew his good friend, and the way I flirt, which pretty much backfires most of the time, is if I like you, I pick on you just
Right.
to see how much you push back,
Right.
because I
Okay.
don't want like a doormat. So I went up saying, "Who wears a Hawaiian shirt?" That's the first thing I said. And now he's was a quieter person then, or an introvert more so then. So obviously I come up, say that, don't give him time to, talk back. And then I start yabbering on about the shirt or something. I don't know what I did.
Right.
So
So that was your official first meeting, and
yeah,
so did you say it took how many years, Glenn?
seven,
7 years before you actually got together.
yeah,
So
so
why? Can I just ask, why do you think it didn't actually happen then?
well, we did try a couple of times, to be honest.
Right.
We had a couple of little one night stands, if you like, and we became friends. So
yeah.
it just wasn't.
The time.
It was like
Can I throw?
it didn't really click? I guess.
Can I throw a cliche? I mean, I hate saying stuff like this, but I met Glenn and we both weren't ready for each other. I mean, friendship, of course,
Mm.
but there is no way that Jim and that Glenn would survive now at all, like at all. So, to follow on that cliche, we had to live all through our own shit to then get to that crossroads where, oh, okay,
Mm.
this is,
Yeah.
this is something we can do. Yeah.
And I guess because you've experienced the friendship thing, does it matter? Does it matter? I mean, it's really interesting because I sometimes think if you know someone, that person's already crossed off the list, right? Because you've got to find a new person. But you're actually saying that it's different to that. So how does that work? How did you notice your feelings changed as you developed a different way that you perceived each other?
I think I'd always had an attraction to Jim physically, and then, but I think people kindly joke. A good friend of mine joked that Jim and I should get together at one stage, and I just laughed. I said, "Jim's such a different personality. He's always on. It's totally not what I could live with." But what had happened, I think, is we'd gone through some relationships, I think, which had taught us a lot about ourselves,
Mm.
about what we didn't want in a relationship.
Right.
So we had to go through that journey. So by the time we actually did get together, we realized.
This is why you're my role models. It's just,
Oh, wow.
you know
Wow.
what? It makes sense. It's like there's no, your answers don't have any contrived gay, parts to it. It's just
Well,
real. It's real. You just got on with your life and you flirted and played a few times, but the reality was you waited till that moment. And so do you recall what that moment was that you actually said to each other, right, this is it, we're together?
Yeah.
very much so. No, so what had happened was, so he was going through like a kind of a really bad relationship, bad bust up.
It was about 4-year relationship.
Yeah, I was single and happy and just living my life and not really caring, but we were good friends.
So we weren't that good friends.
So what happened was, I think when he broke up, I said, look, if you ever want a wingman going out, let's go whore ourselves, let's go pick up some men.
You are so smart.
So I was no, that's legit. But he said it's too early, and I said fine. And then a couple of months later, as they were breaking up, I said, if you want to do it, let's go out. He goes, oh, maybe. And I said, well, tell me the kind of guys you like, so then
Right.
I might set that up for you. But Glenn, he can't lie, and he's got the worst poker face ever. So when I said the guys you like, his face changed. I went, who do you like? He goes, no one. And I'm like, oh my God, it's the worst. Anyway, so I got it out of him. He goes, oh, someone like you, like me. And I was like,
Wow, that's so
not like-
romantic. So
Well,
Disney. It's Disney. I love it.
Physically.
and then I said, do you mean me particularly, or a guy that looks like me? Anyway, cut to us just about to watch a DVD at my house. And then I said to him, well, if you kissed me, I wouldn't say no. And then it started.
And then from that kiss, it was on.
Well, so what we
Wow.
did, because we have a lot of mutual friends, we kept it really quiet for about a month.
Right.
And we didn't tell anyone. Kind of like, the whole Monica and Chandler kind of thing.
Yeah.
where-
I know that you know that. I know that you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in reality, everyone knew anyway, right?
No. It was literally
It's very quiet.
very quiet because we had to work it out.
Yeah.
Just
That's good. I mean, like, yeah, you didn't go straight away and tell everyone, or you didn't put it on Facebook. So, you know how some people do, they break up with someone, they get with someone, they go break up with someone. It's this
no.
continual updating statuses and all that. So you've found each other, which is beautiful. You've both had experience, which is beautiful. So what makes your relationship different or special? Like, what makes it, what makes it that you've lasted this long? What do you think you've brought into the relationship as a couple, as individuals, that's made it last?
So Glenn, what do you think?
Well, I think we know each other's crazy, as Jim would say. So
That's really important.
because we were friends for so long, we already knew a lot about what each other had gone through, and we knew each other's kind of also each kind of a moral standpoint and values and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have very similar values and how we like to treat people and each other.
Do you know, there is a big difference, Joey, when you're talking to a friend for 7 years about life, right? Anything, pick anything. I don't filter anything to a friend. I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But if you're starting to date someone, you tend to want to put your best foot forward, right?
Yeah.
So you filter a bit more. So when we started to date, Glenn knew all my crazy. He knew all my ugly.
It was a lot.
Yeah. But that's why I think it's a good mold, because the biggest advice that people would give would be that sometimes the relationships, gay and straight, move too fast. So what you really did, you really had a relationship together for 7 years.
Yeah.
That was getting to know each other. So do you think that was a big help?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And Glenn, when you said before that he's always switched on, how did you learn to manage that?
So that was my biggest concern.
Sorry, or adapt to that?
Is that people that know Jim know that when he's out in the social scene, he's an extrovert, he's switched on, he's go, go, go. When you see him at home, very, very different Jim. He's switched off. So he's kind of the opposite. He's more chilled, laid back. That's the Jim I fell in love with.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know.
So are you saying that he's got a different persona at home that he doesn't necessarily show everyone out? Like, I know that he's got all sides, but he is a social butterfly. He's very extroverted. So he doesn't necessarily show that when he's out because the environment doesn't really allow that, does it?
Yeah.
He is, but he isn't. There's parts of him that loves sitting on the couch watching his favorite friends.
I think people might think, this might be to all extroverts, and I know this isn't about that. I think people might think that I like people, and I don't generally like people. Like, I generally do not like people. But when I'm out, I'm like, well, you're not going to show that, so I'm just going to be,
So actually the other way around. I'm the one that likes.
He loves everyone, and I'm like, oh, no, hate everyone and everything.
Yeah.
So.
Do you think that when you first met at that party, at the Christmas party, you were shy, Glenn, and do you think that you've sort of taken on each other's personalities to a degree to find that middle place? So you've become a bit more extroverted. He may become a bit more introverted.
Definitely, but there's also, I think I learned a lot. I was a very different person when we got together from when I first met him, because I'd gone through a lot of stuff, personal stuff as well, which had made me grow as a person. I was much more assertive and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But yes, that did help. But we are very different, and that's key too. We don't want to be too similar to each other. I think that helps. There's things I enjoyed doing, which Jim has kind of learned to enjoy as well, and vice versa. We do have some similarities as well.
Spandau Ballet?
Well, you're close. 80s, no. Music generally. Music, can I tell you, about 85% of our music is very strongly overlapped. But
that's good.
But I think a big part of it is I don't think we take things too seriously, and we do laugh a lot. We do make each other laugh a lot. I think that's very important. It's like we're not. There's so much that happens that's going on in the world all the time that can really bring you down, but we don't. We can tend to sort of brush that off a little bit and make sure it doesn't impact our relationship.
Yeah, that's good. And that's probably going to be really interesting for listeners to listen to and understand. So can we just go to the other side of the spectrum?
Yes.
Can you just run us through how you deal with arguments or how you deal with disagreements? Because, we look at you and we see this ideal couple, and I know that you're human, and you may not argue, I don't know, but like, how do you deal with arguments? Is there a top and a bottom? Is there a more aggressive versus a passive? Like, or do you take that laughing, happy type of guys that you are and bring that into your arguments?
Okay, so we rarely had an outblown argument, haven't we?
Correct.
God, that's good.
Yeah, there have been times. So, I mean, the way I deal with frustration in a relationship is very different to Glenn, of course, because we're different people. But if it does escalate, I can. Yeah, I think I there's never something hateful. Do you know what I mean? You know how people, it tips over into,
Yeah,
people get so frustrated
it becomes ego driven.
and then it becomes a little bit ego driven. I must admit, I'm very dogmatic and I can become really self righteous. This isn't news to him, but I become quite, no, I am correct and nothing else, is important at the moment than my correctness. But the next day, there's rarely a time where we carry that on, or
I think we've had like one or two.
Yeah.
Really,
So then what's the? I mean, I look at you both and I go, God, I'm jealous. So what's this?
no.
What's the secret of you doing that? Because you're totally right. But one of the biggest things that people have experienced in relationships is mental health breakdowns. They've experienced anger issues, addictions. But you guys seem to be together and balanced. So how have you maintained that ability to see each other for who you both are, rather than letting the ego take over?
So I think there's a lot of, because of what we do in our professional lives as well, or have done in the past, there's a lot of self-awareness. So really understanding who we are as people and what our strengths and weaknesses are, and owning those weaknesses.
Okay.
And being honest about them. So there's things where we'll disagree, and quite often I'll put forward something and Jim will disagree, and he might be quite strong on his, or dogmatic or whatever, but I understand that's Jim's way, and I don't take offense to any of that. I take it for what it is. He's actually providing good advice in his way.
So you're saying that you're accepting of the whole of Jim.
Very much so, and that's key too. We had to, I think, when we started, because we already knew each other quite well. You have to accept that you're not going to change this person. It's this person, warts and all. So all the bad that you know about that person, bad.
Yeah.
But you have to accept that. And going into the relationship, you have to be okay with that.
And Joe, one thing big for me, living with someone and being in a relationship, is almost the fact that what is really important to me is not always really important to Glenn. And you've got to sort of go, well, hold on, is this just me being biased? So, sometimes I might think, why aren't we doing this? I want this to happen. And then I think, but it's not important to him, and I can see why and whatnot. And sometimes you choose your battles. Sometimes you're like, oh, no, leave it. Versus everything is a battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I know. But that's why, from my perspective as a therapist, you guys are so healthy.
Well,
do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you probably know that already, but most people don't see things like that. Most people are still living in the ego.
No,
so even though they love each other, they'll always find a way to argue. And you guys
Yeah.
don't do that. So it's beautiful.
But to be honest, there are times when I come in and Glenn will, I'm sure, picks up on it, where I want something to have happened and it didn't. So the doors start closing a bit tight, harder on the.
So is that the Greek in you?
That is the Greek in me, kind of trying to make a point. But then I kind of go, well, hold on, don't be that guy. If I have a problem, say something. If I don't, just calm down. Like, I'm a big fan of, if there is a problem, there is an actual problem, say it, but then don't behave. Yeah, if you don't say anything, then don't behave like there's a problem.
Yeah.
And there's been I know there was probably our biggest argument. Was a time when I was a bit jealous of Jim in one situation, and that affected how I was thinking. I wasn't sure at the time how it was affecting me, and so I was being quite moody at the time, and Jim wasn't sure what was going on. It took a little time for me to process that and understand why I felt that way, and then acknowledge it, and then I could explain to Jim.
Sure.
It made Jim.
Well, can we expand on that a little bit? So how do you guys I guess accept trust? Like, how did you I can understand what you're talking about in regards to seeing someone else out doing stuff and you maybe not understanding that. So how did you negotiate? Is it a talking thing, or was it just an organic thing? Did you have to talk through it? That you had to trust each other, or you just did it?
I'm quite a trusting person, initially anyway. Would you say you are?
Yeah, I am too. My default, anyone I meet, I'll trust you, because why wouldn't you? Like, but then their behaviors and words and stories, if they start to undermine that framework, I'm like, well, dickhead, you're proving me wrong. I've never not trusted someone. I'll just say, hi, yep, you seem like a nice person until you prove me wrong. Not that I'm looking for it either. So we both come from a very positive trust perspective.
Yeah. And that works then.
That kind of works. But with Glenn, I over the years, he sort of, if something really is jolting him, he needs to think about it and then come back. I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? Tell me now. Like, I could be a little bit more immediate. Where Glenn, like, let me process, which I'm like, come on, give it to me now. So, but anyway, so I think we're both trusting people.
Yeah, and that's the extrovert introvert thing. I'm what you could probably classify as a social introvert, so I love being around people, but I also like my own time. Jim's more of he gets a lot of energy from being around people, that kind of thing. But we compromise, and that's very important. I mean, that's a cliche. You should compromise in a relationship, but we do. And I think that helps build the trust and just understanding how each other works, and acknowledging that we're different and being fine with that.
Yeah. When it comes to sex, how do you guys? It's been a while since you've been together. How have you negotiated how you view sex?
That's interesting.
In the gay world, like, are you open? Are you monogamous? Are you, have you had talks about, playing with other people? Like, how does it work for you guys in your relationship?
Yeah, our relationship is a monogamous relationship. We're a closed relationship. We have talked about opening up. It's not something that we both want to do. I have been in an open relationship before, in two of my previous relationships, and I don't think it's anything we need or want to do. Sex is not the
like the catalyst of everything.
No, it's not. It's not the reason why we're together. It's not the most important thing in our relationship.
Sorry, go on.
And I think that's important for our longevity as well. We love doing. I think we love doing a lot of things that we haven't done before. So we're always trying new things.
But it's also like you're viewing a relationship holistically, which I love, and that's why I'm excited for you. And I mean, how do you? And I know that this is just an opinion, and we're not asking anyone to say something negative, but just I'm curious to know, what is your opinion on, say, how the gay world does view relationships?
You know what? I have a bit of a theory that when people say, I've heard people say, oh, the gay guys or the gay scene, although it is different to the straight scene, do you know human nature is still the same in both? In our world, in the gay world, it might be highlighted a bit more or a little bit more prevalent, but human nature is human nature. So whether it's narcissistic or the grass is greener, whatever the type of situation going on, that happens in straight worlds too. It's just that we're a little bit more upfront with it. Casual sex, although the straights are catching up, but casual sex was never a big deal with us.
Yeah. So you don't feel any pressure from anyone?
No, not at all. No, I've never done that in the past anyway. I don't judge other people, but I've never said I have to do something. Does that make sense? I've never.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pressures in other ways, but that way I never. Did you ever feel?
No, that's why I love it. It's like, because that's what I'm seeking. But I find that going on the apps, I find it very difficult to actually find people that aren't wanting to hook up with other people. Because the nature of the app. So I think it's becoming harder to meet people now with the bars closing. Us, we're in lockdown. I mean, it is a little bit different. So just before we finish, if I can ask you both, just if our listeners are listening and they're in a new relationship or even a long relationship, what would be your advice to them?
Do you know, a friend of mine, once we were chatting before I met Glenn, and he was saying, you know what, you've got to show you're crazy early. Because I was, in my other relationships, I didn't show my crazy. I was trying to always present this very polished, together, man about town. And, that's a facade, really. So show your crazy early in the sense of, I'm going to throw another cliche, be you as much as you can. So if you are a little bit neurotic here, show that. Because the person that runs away isn't the person for you. You know what I mean? It's like a filtering system. So
be yourself.
Be yourself, but I didn't want to say that. But just
that's The reality is, but people are pretending to be who they're not, and they don't tell the truth. And then what happens is that 3 years later, they start getting resentment. So
Yeah. But even I've even met people thinking that they're being themselves and they're just doing a version of it. I'm like, dude, that's not it. Like, just
Right.
calm the fuck down.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
I think that was the biggest draw card for me for Jim is like, here he is, he's got this masculine look, which I like, but inside he's the gayest person you'll ever meet. So
Girl.
I love
Girl.
that he was happy to be himself, and he kind of had guys coming up to him who wanted that kind of macho persona, and he would purposefully do the opposite.
and flip it.
Yeah, and that
Because
was,
that's the
I thought
worst
that was
thing you could do to
fantastic.
me. Yeah.
Because there's so many guys I've met out there who try to put forward this macho persona, and they're just not that interesting. It's people who are actually being themselves that are most interesting.
Yeah. Well, both of you are definitely balanced, healthy men. And again, it's just so good to talk to you, and hopefully you'll inspire lots of our listeners. You've inspired me. So, Glenn and Jim, thank you so much for taking time out on your Saturday to talk to me.
Thank you for
very
being
much, sir.
interested. See ya.
Bye, guys. Keep going for another 10 years. To continue our series on relationships, today we're going to be speaking to a straight married couple who have been together for over 25 years. I'm going to hear about their secret of how they've made the relationship work. Hi, this is Joey Buzzatall, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Michael and Debbie Neat, and they're going to be talking to us about their relationship, their careers, and the ups and downs of how they've survived. Michael and Debbie, how are you?
Hi, great.
Really
How are
good.
you?
Thank you so much for talking to us. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, and you've been so patient with me, so thank you so much. Firstly, how is everything up in WA?
Yeah, great. Our weather is perfect. Blue sky, sunshine, and lovely and warm.
Almost
Beautiful.
5 years in
And
Margaret
almost
River.
COVID free.
You guys are so lucky. Like, today is our first real free day, so we're experiencing this joy. So we're talking about long-term relationships. I guess, do you want to just introduce yourselves and tell the audience a little bit about maybe, you know, how long you've been together and your backgrounds and how you got together?
Okay, I'll start. I am English by birth. I have been in Australia now for 30 plus years. I came over to Melbourne, and after a year and a half of being here, wanting to go back to the UK because I was homesick, I met Deb, and yeah, pretty much everything else has fallen into place. And
So
Can I
that just
just
so that
explain
was
you met on a television game show?
not perfect match.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I was on that too.
a gay perfect match.
No, there was a gay period where all the gays went on it because we wanted free holidays.
Can I say that's actually why
That's
Michael
why
went
I-
on
yeah.
it, because he'd already planned to go back to the UK, and his housemate said you should go on blind. It was called blind date when we went on it.
Yeah.
And he said you should go on that. You can get a holiday
Yeah.
in the UK. Sorry, in somewhere in the world or Australia before you go back to the UK. And I'd been separated and divorced from my first marriage. And my friend said, let's all go on that show and just see what happens. That's
Wow. So, like, I've never heard of anyone who actually, I mean, this is full on. So you guys actually went on it and it worked.
yeah,
Wait,
Like,
the
you
proof
liked
of
each other.
okay. So I was the single,
Right.
and I already had the holiday.
yeah.
And
Right.
it was one of three, and I literally chose her from the answers that she gave me.
Right.
And yeah, we were lucky enough to go to Italy for a week.
Sorry, Italy.
Oh
Can I
my
tell you,
God.
Your first date is Italy. Is
I
what
I got Port Macquarie.
you got ripped off.
I would
Yeah.
have been happy with Port Macquarie.
Yeah. So it sort of was instant. So what do you think is the dynamic or the ingredients that makes your relationship work, especially for this long? Like, you know, is there particular ingredients that you know that it's just there? Like, for example,
That's
communication.
We are best friends.
Yeah.
We have exactly the same principles and ideas, and we clean the house the same. We're anal. You know, Neat's the perfect surname for us. But we really have very, very similar views on things, and we're best friends.
Yeah. So that the key is, you know how some people base it on sex or attraction or all that. But what you guys are saying is that the key is being companions and being friends, and then everything else falls into place, doesn't it?
Totally. After 29 years, I'll be honest, you don't say sex is the thing that keeps you together because, you know, that it does wane after a while. But we are.
Michael's got a smile on his face. He's done it.
I mean, obviously, back at the beginning of most relationships and for very many of the years, the sex was a big part of the relationship as well.
Yeah.
We've just grown together, and we're growing old together. Like Deb said, I'm like the male version of Deb, and she's the female version of me.
I love that.
We come from we're out of the same pod, but we love each other.
Yeah. So, you know, it sort of sounds like you found this soulmate thing that everyone talks about.
And that's corny, but that's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we argue like normal people a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But it's just that, the next day it's like, what was that about? It was so.
So do you mind if we go a little bit deeper, and can you tell us maybe what you think makes you different to everyone else? Like, I understand what you just said, but is there anything at all that makes you different? And again, there may not be, but, you know.
So we've been through a lot. You know, 29 years doesn't just come without its ups and downs. And Joe, as you know, we've had some issues, and I know mental health is something that's important to you. Michael and I, we met at, you know, we're both about 28 when we met, something like that. And it was all very rosy, and we're very vanilla and really nice, you know, domestic people. And then our life took a turn, and we were introduced to a half brother of mine who's gay.
Right.
And he changed our world. He introduced us to something that we'd never experienced before. And interestingly enough, he embraced it.
I dabbled a little bit in the UK, but it just at that time it was just
But the thing is, we were introduced to a new world together, and together we embraced it, and it actually enhanced our relationship.
Yeah,
it took I don't want to use this word, but straight jealousy went out the window because we embraced a new environment where jealousy, we feel, doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, it does exist.
I was going to say, I'm sure it does.
I think it just what it does is it opens up a world where it's not labelled as heavily as, say, the straight world.
Yes. And so we embraced a new environment and experienced a whole new world where we met people like yourself and a whole bunch of people, and we experienced a whole new world. And we were doing that in our 30s.
Right.
So we were mature adults. We weren't kids. So to experience a new life as a couple, as a mature couple, was a really exciting thing for us.
Yeah.
And
did it bring any obstacles? Like, you know, like how did you cope with, like, Michael, how did you cope with the attention? Like, you know,
at first, when we were so new to it, I panicked a little bit. My brother-in-law took me to, when we were in Sydney one weekend, he took me to the barracks, which was very confrontational. You know,
I had to go to the pub opposite and have a drink.
Course.
Oh
my God! So he took you to the barracks, what, as an experiment?
No, well, he just said you need to come in and have a look, because obviously my curiosity was heightened by this whole new experience that I'd been introduced to, and I wanted to know about it.
Yeah.
Coming from the UK, I left when I was 27, and up until 27, I'd really never been exposed to the gay lifestyle. And so when I first came to Australia, I was actually working in Collins Street at the Hyatt, and I was traveling on the tram to and from, and one night there was this really lovely conductor back then, and he and I would be the last two on the tram to go to South Melbourne. And one night he actually came and sat by me, and he said, I wonder if you'd like to come out for a drink. And I panicked and I just went, I'm not gay. And he said, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I said, and then we talked about it a little bit more, and he just said, you are just a genuinely nice guy. We chat all the time. I see you all the time, and I just wanted to invite you out for a drink.
Yeah. And I guess your personality was back then would have been rare, which I think now a lot more straight guys are like what you are, right? So back then, because you were rare, did you feel any pressure from like your straight friends in regards to you going to those places? Like, what did your straight friends think? What did they think about you guys going to a gay party?
Can I say, when we started clubbing, we did get resistance from straight friends of ours, and some of them were quite judgmental about the fact that all of a sudden
did they label you?
They didn't give us a label. They just turned a bit. We weren't doing the dinner parties anymore. Michael and I were out clubbing.
Yeah.
And we did change our friendship circle quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we have no regrets whatsoever.
Oh, gosh,
yeah.
We have some amazing friends that, since we left the whole scene, have remained the best friends. And
you got to experience a lifestyle that I think a lot of straight couples, and this is my opinion, I think that there is a lag with some, they have children, they have this mortgage, so they have this lag, but you got to experience a bit of freedom and fun, and you got to choose when you went in and out of it. It wasn't as if you were pressured, or you both able. Yeah. So let's just go a bit forward. When did you start experiencing the mental health issues?
Okay. So I was 40. What?
2005.
2005.
November 2005.
Okay.
I started.
I still remember.
I was in the corporate world, in sales, in corporate sales. I was in a very high-powered position, getting paid the big bucks and working very long hours. And I started to notice that I was going to work and the screen, my computer screen, was just going fuzzy. And I was starting to well up with tears when I looked at my screen. And I would go to meetings, corporate meetings, and I was unprepared. And I started to feel like everything was falling apart. And I went to my doctor, who I had been clubbing with. I went to my doctor and I said to him, Richard, I don't know what's wrong with me. I said, I'm just not coping. And
was it like an anxiety, or was it something else?
I don't know what it was. My mum said to me on the phone, she was living in Darwin, and she said, Debbie, I think you should go and see the doctor. And I said, I'm just not coping with things. I'm feeling like it's all falling down and caving around me. And I went to see my doctor and he said, Deb, you've got a lot going on. He said, your mum's in Darwin and she's diagnosed with cancer and she's dying. Your son, and I have a son who's 35 now, but your son, he was living with us and he was stealing. His girlfriend was stealing from us to fund their dope habit. We had a housemate living with us at the time, and he was one of our best friends. You would know him, but anyway, he was living with us, but he was having problems at work, so he was shutting his bedroom door.
Right.
And so I'd come home from work at night, and I'm walking into a house with two stone teenagers, a housemate in the other room who doesn't want to talk, who's one of our friends, and I'm walking and going, fuck it, here's the vodka.
I was at work.
And Michael was working.
Yeah.
And so everything started to crumble around me, and it was starting to affect me at work. And my doctor said to me, he said, Deb, you're suffering depression. I said, what the heck? Like, this is a long time ago. It's 14 years ago.
Yeah, it wasn't really talked about. Yeah.
No. And I said, what do you mean depression? He goes, I want to give you some tablets and I want you to see someone, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I came home and I told Michael, I said, Richard thinks I've got depression and he thinks it's serious. And anyway, to cut a long story short, I literally had a physical breakdown the next day in my car. I could not drive. I was hysterical, sobbing my eyes out. I rang Michael. I said, I can't move. It was paralyzing. And I came home. My work were amazing. The HR lady came to the house. She checked up on me. And I had, I don't know how long off work. I couldn't move.
Yeah.
And I tried to go back to work. And every time I went back to work, I would burst into tears. I'd have anxiety. I couldn't sit in front of a computer. And they said, you have depression.
Yeah.
And to cut a long story short, I was my girlfriend came down to my house and I couldn't get out of bed, and she rang my doctor. My doctor said, take her to the Alfred Hospital and get the psych triage to see her. And a man that you and I both know was in charge of the psychiatric ward at that time. And he said, you don't want to come up here. It's not right for you. And the triage psych people said, you need to be hospitalised. And from there, I went into a psychiatric hospital, a private psychiatric hospital for a month over Christmas and New Year.
Okay, wow. Because I don't know if you know the reason why I do this podcast and I do therapy as a job is because I also had a breakdown after a relationship, but mine was probably not as intense as yours. Like I didn't go to hospital. I just lost it because someone broke my heart. But I understand what it feels like. So Michael, like that must have been hard for you to watch. Like what was that like for you? Did you have any experience with dealing with that sort of stuff?
No, never. No, I for the majority of my life up until that point, everything had been okay, great.
Yeah.
Just normal life.
And then you got me.
And then, then this happened. And again, to watch someone that when I first met her was this profile person in Melbourne, had an enormous personality. Everybody loved it. And to fall in a heap, couldn't get out of bed, didn't want to do anything. It changed our lives completely.
Because that's the thing. It's like that's why I really love that you're together, because I love the fact that the majority of people would have left each other.
Oh, look,
Joey, you understand that?
I did think about it. And obviously it crossed my mind because there were times when everything was just on top of me, and
was it sort of like your responsibility in a way?
Yeah, totally. Because I was Deb's primary carer, and I had to make sure that she was being like eating and all of those sort of things. And we ended up asking our friend to leave the house because we just needed to have the house back. And in the end, my stepson and his girlfriend also left so that we could have the house back to ourselves.
So before we move on a little bit, I just want to ask you, like, what do you think you had to learn quickly? Like, what was the thing that you learned? Because I'm listening to it, I'm going, oh my God, that must have been such a scare. So, what did you learn? Because again, back then there wouldn't have been Beyond Blue or anything.
No. Well, Deb was the money winner for us. She had the corporate job and she was earning big money. I was, as a chef, hospitality, as everybody knows, is not a fantastically paid industry. But the luxury that I had was that even just working the amount of hours that I worked, Deb still supported me.
Yeah.
And I mean that financially as well as, as her husband, and never put pressure on me as you need to earn more money or all those sort of things. But then when this happened, the roles reversed and I had to take care of everything.
Yeah.
So,
it's pretty intense, isn't it? Do you recall the moment that you decided not to leave? Because I understand. I think it's normal to feel like I can't cope, which I think anyone would do. But then there must have been a moment when you thought, "Nah, I've got to step up."
I don't think at any stage really that I was ever going to leave.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that comes from my dad, and I get a little bit emotional about this.
Yeah.
When you think back at it all and where we are now, and it's so totally different. I stayed not because I had to, but it was where I was supposed to be.
Yeah. And that's why this interview is important, because it's showing everyday men. Because everyday men now are sort of running away, they're leaving, and if you just stay and actually work through it, it's not as scary, because you've got to accept, the good and the bad, don't you? Like, do you remember the day that you felt that you could look at each other and say, we're out of the woods? What was that like when you both went, oh my God, we're sort of out of it now, we're in a different place? What was that like? Deb,
I
do you
know.
remember, do you remember that?
I'm trying to think when that day would have happened. Like, I was in hospital for a month. I came out of hospital, and I remember the day I came out of hospital, Mike had to work, and had all my gay boys came and picked me up from hospital, with all my flowers and everything, and brought me home from hospital. We opened champagne, and can I tell you, it was probably the worst thing that could have happened, because the champagne set me into depression the next day.
Yeah.
But
Well, there would have been a lot of physical learning for you as well, because remember back then we didn't, you know, I don't think we put two and two together, did we? Like going out, partying, drinking. Like now we know a lot more. So what did you learn? What did you learn?
I have to be honest that, you know, when I was allocated a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
And, he was a very, very strict man, and he said to me, we talked about drug taking. And I had to say that I took drugs because I was out clubbing and partying and everything else. And so they gave me a drug and alcohol counsellor, but they still counselled me as depression, although there was drug and alcohol groups within the hospital I was in. I was put in the depression group, not the drug and alcohol, but they still counselled me through. They felt that my escapism was going out on weekends and clubbing. Drugs and rocking up to work on a Monday with a meat pie and a Red Bull.
And do you think as well that have you had resolution for you? Like, have you been able to look at that experience and go, you know, maybe your younger years when you were on TV wasn't dealt with, or maybe something happened and then all of a sudden it pops up because
that's so interesting, because my psychiatrist said the same thing.
Well, it's like
a lot of my issues resulted from my young talent time days.
Well, I don't know if you know that between the ages of 3 and about 10, right? Whoever you are in that time, whatever happens to you is the definition of who you are as an adult. So if there were things that weren't resolved in that time, when, you know, that's when it pops up. So that's why I'm curious. Have you had therapy or anything where you've realised that?
Much goddamn therapy. It's ridiculous. I did kinesiology once. Michael took me in 2005 to the Golden Door in Queensland.
In Hunter Valley.
And I had kinesiology there, which I've never had before. And she went through all this stuff, and she was like touching me, and every time my arm went, I don't know how it works. But anyway, she came out with this stuff that, yes, Young Talent Time had an impact on my life.
Well, how old were you in Young Talent Time again?
I started at 12 and a half to 16.
Yeah, so that pressure to be like, I always thought of that show as grown-ups, but they're kids.
Yeah.
Right? So how did you handle that pressure? Because if you didn't handle it, that makes sense why it came out later.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting. She even took it back further, which I don't know how much this is true. But she said, you've been fighting to be alive and to be out there ever since the day you were born. I'm like, what the hell?
Wow.
My mum got pregnant before she was married with my dad. And she said she went to have an abortion and she couldn't go through with it. And here I am. Okay. So the kinesiologist is like, she's gone back that far. I don't know how true.
Yeah.
But she did bring up the whole Young Talent Time.
Yeah. So as a couple, you went through that and then you came out of it, and you look at you're strong. So do you have a strategy to deal with mental health now? Like, how do you deal with it so it doesn't become an issue?
He makes sure I have my tablets every day.
So you don't do anything, like, is there any lifestyle choices? Like, for example, do you meditate? Do you go for walks?
No,
we do walk.
We don't meditate. We don't do yoga. We don't do anything.
Nothing spiritual.
I need to go to work. It's enough.
No, I think that, you know what I've learned about you, because, like, look, I'm really into meditation, so don't call me Artie Farty. But
I try to meditate, but my mind goes too fast.
Yeah. But the thing is, I think that what you've got that's unique is the relationship.
Totally.
Because if you were single or with someone else, you may not be feeling the way you're feeling now. Do you agree?
Oh yeah,
we're so in love. It's ridiculous.
But I'm talking about the mental health part of it. You've been able to get through that.
Yeah. Going back just a little bit though, where you said when did we recognise that we'd sort of come out the other side? For me, it was a lot later, because for so many years, Deb couldn't quite look after herself. And when for me, it was when you went back to work, even doing just part-time or whatever it was that you did.
And I guess you would have noticed it. You would have noticed it more than Deb because you were seeing it while Deb was living it.
Yeah, I mean, we travelled in 2007, and what again for me, watching her have an anxiety attack in Barcelona in the city, with all of these thousands of people around us, and she just—it's almost like she shut down.
Was it like a panic attack?
And I had to push her, literally take her up to the wall and cover her and just calm her down.
Then I had 3 days in our hotel room on Valium because I couldn't cope with the buzz of Barcelona.
Yeah, okay.
And it recognised it and calmed me down.
And what about now, Deb? Where are you? Like, what's your place now? Are you feeling? Is it
we're in a
gone?
country town. I'm fine. In a country town, I'm fine. I had issues in my previous job here in Margaret River where one day, I'll be honest, and I came home and I told Michael and I went to the doctor immediately. I wanted to drive the car off the road. Okay. And I had suicide thoughts. And I immediately came back to the office. I rang the doctor. I went and saw the doctor and I said, I don't like the place I'm in. I'm unhappy in my job. And I thought about running the car off the road. And that's when I knew I had to get out of that job. Yeah. And I'm in a great place now. I'm still on medication. And as everyone said, if you have diabetes, you're on medication. If you have,
exactly.
Whatever, you're on medications, you have to accept. And Michael always says to me, you have to accept that you're now on medication.
Totally.
And that keeps you sane.
But I'm just going to say this because I can. I want you to know that there are lots of things that you could do that you're probably scared of, and I want to just talk to you maybe offline because I know that a lot of people say that meditation is hard. Meditation is not about your mind slowing down. Meditation is about discipline. So you even do it when it's a shit day. So you have a shit meditation, and that is part of it. Like, for me personally, I didn't leave my bedroom for 3 months, when I was having my breakdown, and meditation is what saved me. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. So let's jump now into you. When we were waiting for Michael earlier, you were saying that you argue like a normal couple. So how do you deal with arguments and disagreements and obstacles? How do you deal with that being both, I guess, strong-willed?
I think a lot of as with most arguments, I would imagine they're really about nothing other than the moment that it happens.
Yeah. I can't even imagine you two arguing. All I can see is you two laughing at each other.
He yells at me because I drink too much, and he says to me, "You've had enough," and I go, "No, I want another one." There's no point arguing when I've had, a skinful of alcohol because that's the worst time to argue.
Yeah.
So the next morning,
but I do it anyway.
He does it anyway.
Because eventually she stops.
Yeah. Can I ask a personal question?
Yeah.
Who's the boss? Like, because every relationship has a boss. Yeah.
We both are.
Okay, cool.
Because I respect. There are so many things that Deb does that I go, that's right. And then there's the other bits where I go, darling, maybe we should do it this way. And she goes, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
And so it's an even playing field. I wouldn't say she's the boss. And I know that I wouldn't say that I'm the boss. We both wear pants.
Well, Deb described it really nicely, saying that you are, what was the wording that you used,
in
Deb?
touch with his feminine side.
No, you said that he is a mirror of you and you're a mirror of him.
Totally.
Which creates that yin and yang that, look, I'm single and I'm jealous because that's what you're seeking that in this modern day. I mean, on that note, do you think that you would have survived if you met now? Because of the way the world is now? With Tinder and apps and
both of us say I would hate to be single.
I know.
I couldn't stand.
I was going to ask you, is your brother single?
Well, his brother's in a long-term relationship, and
he's nothing like me.
He's nothing like Michael. Michael is completely juxtaposed to the rest of his family.
Okay.
But he wasn't when I met him. He's changed.
Yeah.
But
through all of these life experiences that I've been lucky enough to experience.
Yeah, but God, there's no boss in our family, is there?
No.
I would say if I met Deb now,
Frightening.
Well, I'm sure you got friends and all that are single, and you're watching them. You can see the pressure with apps and how everything now is.
Oh, I would hate it.
Like, you don't go on dates anymore. You don't.
No, but the funny thing is, we met on a television dating show, and we're the biggest junkies of The Bachelor, The Bachelorette, Love Island. No,
I watch
but
it.
we watch it, and I just think the pressure, because they have to be
It's very
Instagram
different.
famous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And when we met, we would go to Southland Shopping Centre, and people would go, "Oh, I know you. You were on Blind Date. You met each other and went to Italy because we met a shopping centre, not because they saw us on Instagram."
Well, I think that you survived life before social media. Social media has been the curse.
Social media is horrible.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, Joe. Going back to that question, if I met Deb now, no, the relationship wouldn't last because he never gets off of her phone.
Can I ask you another personal question? If you don't want to answer, just like, what is life for you like without children? Like, how do you feel?
Brilliant.
Like being a married couple and being in this life, this bubble that's just you two. No, I think that's the key. Another key is that you're not, you don't look old. You're not aging. Your life, life. Sorry?
We're both 57.
That's what I mean. So is that another ingredient, like just not having that around you?
Yeah, because my son is 35 and Michael met him when he was 6, right?
Yeah.
When my ex-husband, who we're friends with, right? And he was 12 years older than me. He's, nearly 70 now. And he lives in Brisbane. But we had issues. He married a second time and then he married a third time. And both times we had issues in relation to his new wife. And Michael had to deal with that. That's another pressure we had to go through. And we've raised Jared, and Jared has had his issues throughout his life as well. Now, the three of us, Jared and Michael and I, have a wonderful relationship. Jared's in Melbourne. We haven't seen him for years, but we talk on the phone and we have a wonderful relationship. We tried to have children for 6 months. We tried. We didn't fall pregnant, and all we went was, thank God we didn't, because we're too selfish. Having a puppy is a big enough stress for us.
Do you want to hear the funny thing? So I told you that I interviewed a gay couple, and I've realised that you're the gay couple and they're the straight couple.
Yeah, probably.
It's going to be an interesting mix because you guys are they were so quiet, reserved. So one last question, and I'll let you guys go because I know you're having a dinner party. What advice would you give to people out there looking for love? Like, what do you think what advice would you give me, because I'm single, or anyone that's listening that wants to have what you've got?
Don't base it on sex.
Thanks, Deb.
I know that's the wrong thing to say to a gay.
No, it's not the wrong thing. I agree, because I'm a romantic, so I love that answer.
Yeah,
you need romance.
I was going to say, keep it exciting. Trust.
It's a little thing.
Be patient with them. Because
Michael still brings me flowers.
Yeah.
Why?
He brings me flowers.
Yeah.
Whether they're from Woolies or Coles or they're from a florist, it doesn't matter. He still thinks to bring me flowers. And they can just be one bunch from Coles.
Yeah.
But he's gone, here's a little thing. And that makes a difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And doing simple things together. We'll just go on a picnic or do stuff. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be flash restaurants. No. It doesn't have to be
you know what I think sometimes is that it's the key or the poison is knowing what is out there. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're someone like yourself who's madly in love, you don't care about what's out there, do you?
No.
Yeah, so that's you know what I mean. That's the key.
Such a selfish attitude. But no, look, I mean, I just look forward. I go to work. I love what I do, but I love coming home.
We still send little emojis to each other during the day. How's
Yeah.
your day, baby? Love you. Can't wait to see you. We're still doing it after 29 years.
Oh, I think we could interview you for hours, and I really need to let you go
And
back to your
going
dinner.
on for hours too.
No, it's beautiful because you're being honest and vulnerable. So I want to say thank you so much for talking to us and for sharing and being honest and, you know, helping other people out there that have, especially that mental health part, because I think a lot of my clients that I see, a lot of people separate because they can't cope. And
Oh,
you guys have given, you know, inspiration that you can come out the other end, which is what we want to hear these stories. So
yeah.
Debbie, Michael, thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you.
Have a great dinner party tonight.
Thank you,
Thank
darling.
you.
Lovely to
Talk
chat
to you
to
soon.
you.
You too. You've
Ciao.
been listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast, and the podcast is out on Monday and on Thursday. So catch up with you later, guys. Bye.